Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Mid Thought Podcast. Today's episode, we will be looking at the first, saga of the Pokemon Adventures manga or Pokemon Special.
And we will specifically be focusing on the collector's edition of this series because there are several releases in America of Pokemon Adventures, which we can talk about later. But primarily we're going with the big books because we own those.
Yes. So, right now, the only collector's edition or the collector's edition goes up to the Emerald game. It goes red, blue, yellow, gold, silver, crystal, ruby, sapphire, and then emerald, and then that's all that's been released so far. Even though I believe the in terms of games, the manga covers all the way to Sword and Shield, or it might
They
even
definitely
be
have gotten the Sword and Shield, yes.
yes, it might even be started to cover Scarlet and Violet.
I haven't heard anything about Scarlet and Violet on the searches, but they definitely have started a serialization for that. However, in America, for our collector's editions, we are only at volume 10, which released in 2021. So we may not be seeing another omnibus for these series until a little bit later. I think once translations catch up to the other adventures of those stories. Uh, but overall, these are really cute collector items. One of my favorite things at the beginning is they actually take the time to include colored covers that you miss from not owning the three volumes themselves. And it's just nice to start with looking at those and just being like, oh, at least I didn't miss out on what was on the front and back of those books. I get to see them at least. And then I get an easy access to all the chapters. And they also include the notes. Sometimes omnibuses just remove those, but there are some points at the beginning of these chapters where the books would begin, where you get a short little note from either the author or the illustrator just explaining how much they enjoy Pokemon and why they wanted to create the series, which I'm like, oh, yes, thank you. I love to hear these people's words because they took the time and effort to create something I enjoy.
So I guess the first thing before we talk about the overall story is this is a very loose adaptation of the first game. If you're looking for something that follows the rules, I guess, of the Pokemon games, I you're not really going to find it here.
Not at all, because Pikachu always gets to learn what? Toxic.
Yep, Pikachu learns like toxic. Um
Ditto can perfectly transform into whatever it wants without the goofy face. Um, there was another Pokemon learning a move that just was ridiculous, and I wish I could remember it, but
it's like
it's definitely a different take with some of the characters. Some of those gym leaders are no longer your favorites because they have to be on Team Rocket's side for some reason. Just kind of odd things happening, but a fun time nonetheless, because you're still following a very spirited kid going through the Pokemon world. Um, and I do like some of the freelance takes of like, oh, there's a wild Pikachu in the town and we need someone to get it. Here comes our red boy. I'd like to do something like that in the game. They're just like, can you go and fix that problem over there? Just Pokemon loose in a town. I'm like,
it's literally eating all of our food, and none of us adults can stop us. Stop it.
well, I think the best way to get into it now is to just go over a summary and get right into the synopsis of book club as we like to do.
All
So I
right.
do actually have a copy also of the Best of Pokemon Adventures, which was a precursor to this collector's edition as well as the regular single volume books. Viz Media put this loose orientation of the chapters out for a sale to be like, hey, kids, you like Pokemon? Read this. And thanks to it selling so well, they actually were able to release the traditional volumes that were made in Japan for consumption here in America, which eventually then led to, of course, the collector's edition. So I'll just read the summary on the back of this one because the collector's edition don't have summaries,
But
which,
real quick about those the best ofs, I guess we can mention that they are definitely more targeted towards Americans, considering they read left to right instead of the usual right to left that basically all mangas are known for. And another major not another major point is that they leave out a lot of the chapters that are in the overall saga. Like, I believe the red, blue, and green journey is around 40 or so chapters, but the
it is
best
40
of
chapters.
the best of is around
10,
15, 10,
12. It's
12.
12.
Oh, so they get rid of quite a lot of important story, which I guess we'll go over later.
Yeah, so the best of is just something for collectors to be like, hey, this is kind of what spun off the series in the right direction. Because in 2000, Viz tried something, and I don't even know what that was. But this is what really kind of started off the Pokemon thing. And here's its summary. The greatest Pokemon trainer of all time returns. Red's back and he's on a mission to catch all the Pokemon. But he's finding out there are rivals around every corner. There's Misty, Green, and Blue. They're all searching for Pokemon too. And don't forget about a mysterious Team Rocket. Suddenly, Pokemon are more popular than ever before. Everyone, it seems, wants to get their hands on Mew, Poliwhirl, Bulbasaur, and of course, the irrepressible electric mouse Pikachu.
Wait, was that what's was that the synopsis for the best of?
Yeah,
Because that just sounds like everyone's a part of Team Rocket and they're all just trying to catch Red's Pokemon.
it does a little bit. And for the best of, with about one chapter truly dedicated to Team Rocket, I guess sure. But of course, we're talking about the collector's edition, which does kind of follow those little roots. Uh, does focus on Red. He's, the champion of it all.
I do like how
Truly a lovely guy.
how the best of says he's back, but this is his like origin story.
Yep.
He's back from nothing. Anyway, you can continue with the collector's edition.
So it does kind of go along that summary of lines with all these different characters. Red and Blue still have their well-known rivalry, with Red being the more optimistic boy, always happy to have whatever he wants, while Blue, of course, is the more stoic of the two. Red always calls him arrogant and kind of obnoxious, and I'm like, okay.
He's not
Sometimes I'm reading and I'm just like, these are kids and they're just doing the extremes at this point. And I'm like, it's kind of cute, but also kind of silly.
Blue's not the smell you later like he is in the games either though. He's more or less the yeah,
He's
what you said, the stoic, and he's just kind of he's like, "Oh, it's you, Red. Bye."
yeah, he's not in the world for friends. He's not in the world for fame. He's just like, I got a mission. I'm gonna do it. We're gonna finish and we're gonna be done.
Like you
And I'm
haven't
like,
gotten there yet, but after this arc, it's not really a spoiler. He starts wearing a cape. So,
okay, that's a weird take. I'll have to probably read. I did only read the first 40 because I didn't think I would enjoy it too much, but it's definitely something that I think I'll probably catch up on now because we have the volumes and it seems like a fun story, but I'm also way behind on other things. Hopefully, book club will keep me up to date of what I need to read.
and I'll read some of your stuff too, just because you're reading some of mine.
Dan to Dan, here we go. Anyway, um, some things about Pokemon that I love. It's team building. I love having a team, I love having friendship, and I love just getting to care for them. And that is very evident for our red protagonist in this book because he literally is just like the power of friendship will save the day, and it does. And I'm I'm there for it every time. Um, but instead of the traditional Pikachu starting out this journey, he actually starts with a Poliwrath,
Yeah.
or I guess
Poliwhirl.
yeah, Poliwhirl, because it becomes Poliwrath in the earlier chapters. But I thought that was kind of a unique take for Red for me because I've always assumed it's just him, Pikachu, and then whatever else is there. Uh, but he truly does show this backstory and this growth with this one Pokemon, and I'm just like, oh, that's so cute. That's so sweet. Of course, you get to meet his team as he discovers them and they grow and they have such bonding moments. And he teaches that skill and passion to other people around him. And they're always just like, wow, this kid is either really stupid or he really cares for his Pokemon. And I'm like, yeah.
So I guess the story starts out like any journey through Pokemon. Um, he's got his Poliwhirl. Then he gets a kind of unexpected Bulbasaur. You wouldn't expect the since Charmander is usually the most popular. Um, Blue gets the Charmander and he gets the Bulbasaur. Um, then he goes to Viridian City where they're being terrorized by a Pikachu because no one can catch the Pikachu for some reason.
And then he fights Brock and he uses an electric move to defeat his Onyx. And that was another thing that I was just like, why?
Oh yes, um,
How?
Onyx is yeah, Onyx is part ground. So yeah, even though I'm pretty sure Pikachu uses Thundershock, it still actually just sends his Onyx into multiple pieces for some reason. I guess that's another thing we can talk about is the amount of violence in this manga that you wouldn't expect.
There
Uh,
there is a little bit more than I did expect. The Arbok for one, there's a fight with an Arbok and it eventually gets slashed. You see it's cut in half, blacked form, but on the next page, you literally see the insides of it kind of just exposed. And I was just like, why? Why did this happen this way? Uh, instance, in the Safari Zone, Nidoking is kind of chasing after our boy, and he just stabs it in the eye. He
yeah,
picks up something and just impales him, and I'm like,
and usually you wouldn't expect to see blood in a Pokemon game, but yeah, it starts bleeding from the eye. So it's like, oh my gosh.
it is oddly graphic in a way that I wouldn't expect for kids to be reading, but I guess that's just, the the love that the author put into it. And the
Sure.
illustrator's like, yeah, violence.
Um, I guess another thing to mention is all of the personality changes. You can't really, or not that you can't really, but there wasn't any really personality to the gym leaders in the actual games. It was just like, ah, you've entered my gym, now fight. But in this, everyone seems to have like,
Characters with motivations. They
yeah,
have
they all
reasons
have
to be
character
where they were.
motivations. Except
So
for
the
Brock. Brock doesn't really do anything.
Yeah, Brock was pretty standard for a gym leader. He just kind of was there.
He was
However,
there shirtless.
you
For
just like mentioning this man shirtless, and I
It's just
think
so
that's a problem.
random. He's just there shirtless, and he has like a hula hoop of Geodudes around him at all times. It's really random. I'm like, what? Why? Why?
For the other gym leaders, we have Misty and Erica both showing very uh, calming natures, very happy ones. Obviously, Misty keeps kind of what you met when you watch the anime. Not that they're exactly the same, but she's a very high-spirited heiress, I guess, with a lot of stuff that she wants to help and save the day with. Erica was really interesting. I liked her chapter a lot, and I wish there was more to that. But basically, she's been on to some of Team Rocket's underhanded shenanigans and has been trying to right the wrongs that they've set into motion. As for
Yeah,
some of the other gym leaders, they're no longer gym leading. They actually have left those positions because they seek more power.
they're
So that's
evil.
Lieutenant Surge, Koga, and Sabrina as the main three of that issue. Uh, they all basically said, I was done working with nothing to gain. I needed more out of it. So Lieutenant Surge is like this militia for hire where he's selling Pokemon on the black market. Uh, Koga's just an enforcer wearing the Team Rocket logo when you first meet him, and I'm just like, why is there a gym leader here? And then Sabrina just, I feel like they make her overpowered, and then she gets beaten by kids, and I'm like, hmm.
Like she mentions for I think one line that she was born with psychic powers in the original games, but then in this she's like, "Ah, yes, I have the same power. I can use psychic in real life. I am a Pokemon."
Yeah, she's pretty much just like that. Very cool, very interesting. And then the last one that I think probably got the most kind of growth as a character, I would say, is Blaine. Um, the professor, obviously very smart man, was put into Team Rocket at the start of this work, but throughout he saw the error of his ways and decided to change and then tried to save the day by getting rid of Mewtwo, one of his creations that he was working on with Team Rocket, which I'm like, wow, that's cool.
I
That's
believe
nifty.
that happened in the anime too, right?
I do not know. I'm gonna be honest.
Because
I watched the Indigo League so much when I was a kid, but it wasn't for me to watch as a serial. It was just episodic at that moment in my childhood. So I'd just be like, ah, I like Misty. She's cool.
anyway, I think Blaine was just like a. I think it was just partially hinted at in the games that he had something to do with the creation of Mewtwo, but now they're like blood brothers type thing in this manga to where they're like, if you my arm is fused with yours.
Yeah, that's true. He had like an arm disease that would like go off if he got close to Mewtwo, and he's like, I have such limited time before I die. So I have to use this skill, this pain to find him now. And I was like, bro, what the why?
And then there's also like this thing with the gym badges too. Like it's not, I always thought they were a thing that was mass produced and given to each gym leader, and anyone that beats a gym leader is given one to show that they've won. But in this, no, there's like a circular device, and when you put all 8 gym badges in it, it makes like
7.
a oh
It's actually
7.
all 7. Yeah. That was a weird thing too.
Sorry, it's a spoiler and for yellow.
Oh,
Seven gym badges in the circular device. It what does it do? Because it does something else in yellow. If you have the eighth one,
so in this one, it was a lie. It said that they would power up your Pokemon, but in this one, what they do is they get the 3 legendary birds and they just
oh,
stick them
that's right. They
together.
fuse the birds together.
For some reason, experimenting on Eevee has led to the fact that we can now take an electric bird, a ice bird, and a fire bird and just make them one big bird of problems.
Someone was watching some Dragon Ball when they wrote this chapter. They're just like, ah, fusion sounds good. How about we just
Yeah,
fuse them together?
it was a wild ride once you got into the Team Rocket plot. I was just like, why is this the goal? Because eventually they gave up on Mew because they couldn't find the thing, and they're like, oh, we don't have the information for it. But Mew is scattered throughout these chapters, so much so, and I love that. As a Mew lover, seeing Mew in the first chapter just made my day. And then in the last chapter, I got to see him again, and I was like, this is the best. I got to see my baby.
Um, yeah, but there's like I think they destroy basically all of. Is it Saffron City or so? It's not Celadon. Saffron City.
I think it was Saffron because they had to get into it, but it was blocked off from the north, south, west, the east. No one could get past the psychic wall, created by Mr. Mime, by the way.
But they basically destroy the entire thing. They basically destroy the entire city, fusing this bird together, and then also destroying Team Rocket.
And I think one thing that we've kind of let be on the back burner right now is
Hmm.
that there is one additional character, and that is Green.
Oh
So of
yeah.
course, Pallet Town has three starters to start with: Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle. Now, of course, you couldn't have this story without Squirtle being somehow involved, so it gets stolen by a little thief whose name is Green. She is the girl character model for the games when they get that incorporated. Um, but overall, every time I have met this girl, I have always thought she is a creep. She disturbs me. I am terrified of her. And once again, I was not let down. She's just a bad person. In this game, she steals from our main character. She uses her feminine wiles to make him make poor decisions of what is it? Scamming. Basically robs him of
Scamming.
6,000 Pokecoins. Though they don't call it that. They have a different. I think they call them smackers. I'm not really sure the
That's
money
just like
of this.
code for it.
Yeah.
I think it's just Poké Dollars.
Either way, she's a very underhanded person. She's never really trustworthy in the whole time. And eventually she does get a bit of a comeuppance at the end when Dr. Oak comes back to beat her and says, "And this is why you don't steal. You ask." And then he gives her a Pokedex, and I was like, "This is not what you should be doing. A bad choice."
And we'll
But
go
yeah,
over.
once again,
We'll do like a whole review of the final the Pokemon League, I guess.
I mean, not much happens.
It's a cool fight though. It's just like the only problem with some of the fights though is like you always picture, at least when you're playing the games, it's like, oh, you throw out each person throws out a Pokemon, then you're like attack, attack. But half the time it ends up with like one of the trainers dive bombing in front of a Pokemon to take a hit for it. It's like, oh, geez.
Yeah, the
Red.
battle system in this is kind of confusing sometimes. It's and I'm not sure if you just had to beat two of the Pokemon, but they definitely didn't battle until all of them were defeated.
Oh
It was
yeah.
like Red beat two Pokemon and then he was considered the winner. And I was like, is that how the game works? No. It's who's ever last standing. Come on, kids. Keep fighting. But it is I think the best fight though comes with Giovanni's team just having a overpowered, over thought out man going against this kid, and in the end the kid pulling it out was pretty impressive. It was really just like we're gonna play fair on his end, and they really did, but they totally destroyed the gym. Like it is just gone now.
Oh yeah.
But once again, electric beating ground. That is how that story ends, and I hate it.
Use toxic, obviously. Um, let's see. We went over that. We went over that.
We went over this and that. I like that.
I mean, the weird thing about Pokemon Adventures is that it's really episodic because you can go from doing one thing to um it just skipping ahead really quickly. Like I believe.
Pacing, yeah, is a bit of an issue for this story, and I think it was just because it was kind of a trial and error for the author and illustrator. Because later on, you do say that the stories do get a little bit longer, they have a little bit more progression to them, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so this could have just been a nice little thought experiment done by the creators to see if it would sell, to see if it would take off, and it, I think, personally did amazing for it to still be going to this day of just creating stories for the characters that exist within the game franchise in a way that's not animated, a way that's not portrayed in the game, but just a fun take. And to create personalities for all of them can make it so much more interesting so that when you do play the game, you can think, oh, are you going to leave the gym next time and just not be here and work for Team Rocket? That's crazy. Anyway, can I have my badge now?
It's also kind of just I guess it's a difficult task to I'm not sure how long your average Pokemon game is, but just to shrink down an RPG story into a manga and have it be different than just walk, walk, walk along this thing, walk in the tall grass, fight someone. Oh, you encountered a person, talk to this person. Like, instead of just walking in the safari zone and then throwing a rock at it, they had to come up with, oh, Red snuck in his own Pokeball and accidentally caught a Nidoqueen, which pissed off all the Nido Kings to the point where they wanted to kill him for taking their babe.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. I did not expect the Safari Zone to be just a sit
It
and
was like
watch
a
experience.
Jurassic Park parody almost.
Yeah. And the little Pidgeots. So in this section, there are Pidgeot robots, Pidgeots, that are giving him instruction. And I will say, probably one of my favorite characters in the book because he's just sassing a 10-year-old for being stupid. He's like, why would you? You see what happens when you break the rules? We're almost gonna die. You killed my friend. This is bad, but I'm gonna stick with you to get you to that exit, boy. We're gonna live to see another day. And they do, because of course, the story has to end in a positive message for the little 10-year-old. Can't have him dying, eaten by a victory bell.
I guess in terms of other characters, like even though it's obvious it's been Americanized, I like that they added more personality to people like Bill, who's just scientist who switched his body with a Clefairy, but now he's like a go-to person that has the thickest southern accent ever
It
created
is
in anything.
so thick. Oh my, reading his dialogue was so hard for me. And I usually can say, yeah, no, I understand what he's saying. In this book, I was like, who are these words for? Not me. But anyway, he was an interesting time when you met him.
I'm trying to think, are there any other standout events?
I believe so. I think we've covered a lot of the characters. We've definitely talked a lot on those gym leaders.
I guess
Um,
another thing I guess I could mention, like instead of uh, something that appears in almost every game is the game corner, but instead of having like a page dedicated to a slot machine or something, they have it to where Blue gets his Pokemon mixed up with Red's completely, and they have a whole event about that, which is pretty funny.
I was confused by that because I was like, how did you mix this up so poorly?
It's true. I don't
Like,
know how they mixed it up so poorly, but
Blue is the one that drops stuff, but somehow Red also lost all his things on the ground in the same spot, and then they all picked up
They all
Each
picked up
other's?
different Pokeballs, yes.
It was such an odd time.
Also some very weird changes that I didn't know about unless I guess I could look up, be a Pokedex scholar, is that Tauros has mind control powers.
Say mind control powers. I think it has herd control, which, it makes a little sense, I think, for the type of creature it is, but it is kind of funny that it's just overly powerful with that.
That's so weird. Um, but yeah, that was like a short overview of the Red story for the collector's edition.
Hopefully we'll get to cover the others because I do kind of want to see how the other stories play out, as I wasn't able to ever truly play some of these games back in the day, because some of these I have Let's Go experience with the newer renditions of the earlier games. I've got remake editions, but I've never played Yellow, so that'll be fun to read, I think.
Okay,
It's
Yellow
because
is nothing like anything. It's basically they wrote their own complete story.
then I am excited for that because Pokemon is so much fun, and I like the takes that they make and the choices they go for. I think it's really original. Of course, I'd like to even see some of those implications in game. I think they would be really interesting to try, but of course they're suited on finding more power-ups. We gotta put some crystal gems on these things.
I
Make them
just know
shinier.
I just know that in terms of a contest fan, you're gonna like the Ruby and Sapphire one.
There's a contest portion of the story. I am
The
so
main
excited.
character only cares about contests.
Valid. Only true MVPs care about contest and only contests. All right. Poffins are amazing and they're fun and you get to dress them up
Sure,
and make them look cute.
sure. Well, thank you all for joining us. I guess we'll be looking at Dan to Dan in the next one, and then maybe
We
some
don't
more.
know what we're gonna read next,
That's
but
true. Hope you join us for the next one, and looking
gotta catch
to,
them all.
yeah, reading some more Pokemon in the future. See ya.